Your safe investment is quietly destroying your retirement. He did everything the internet told him to do. He opened a brokerage account. He skipped the risky individual stocks. He put his money into ETFs, the safe, smart, diversified choice that every finance influencer recommends. He invested consistently for 3 years. Felt good about it. Told his wife they were finally on the right track. Then the market had a rough year. He checked his account. He hadn't just lost money from the market drop. He had also been quietly losing money for 3 years through fees he never noticed, an ETF that wasn't as diversified as he thought, and a strategy he didn't actually understand. He did the right thing, and still got burned. That person is more common than you think. And if you own ETFs right now, you need to watch this entire video. What's up? Welcome back. ETFs have become the go-to investment for everyday Americans, and honestly, for good reason. They're simple, low-cost, and way less stressful than picking individual stocks. But here's what the hype videos don't tell you. ETFs come with hidden traps. Quiet mistakes that don't show up as big dramatic losses, they just slowly drain your returns, year after year, while you think everything is fine. Today we're exposing the 5 most dangerous ETF mistakes regular investors make, the ones that can cost you tens of thousands of dollars over a decade without you ever realizing it. No jargon. No fluff. Just the straight truth you deserve before you put another dollar in. Let's go. Mistake number 1, buying an ETF because the name sounds safe. Here's a question. If I told you there was an ETF called the Total Market Growth and Innovation Fund, sounds pretty solid, right? Diversified. Growth-focused. Modern. What if I told you that fund had 80% of its money in just 5 companies? That's not hypothetical. This kind of thing happens all the time. And it catches people off guard because they read the name, feel good about it, and never look inside. This is the number 1 ETF mistake Americans make, and it's the most invisible one. Here's a real example to make it click. Imagine you walk into a grocery store and grab a bag labeled mixed nuts. You're expecting a nice variety: cashews, almonds, walnuts, pecans, peanuts. But when you open the bag, it's 75% peanuts with a few cashews scattered in. Is it technically mixed? Sure. Is it what you expected? Absolutely not. ETFs work the same way. 2 ETFs can both be called S&P 500 ETFs, and one might weight the top 10 companies at 32% of the total fund, while another spreads that same money more evenly across all 500 companies. Same label. Very different product. Or take sector ETFs, healthcare, technology, clean energy. They sound focused and smart. But many of them are secretly just a bet on 3 or 4 mega companies. If those companies have a bad quarter, your diversified sector ETF tanks just like a single stock would. So what do you actually do? Before buying any ETF, look up its fact sheet. It takes 2 minutes. Search the ETF ticker plus the word holdings, like VOO Holdings or QQQ Holdings. Look at 2 things: how many companies does it hold? What percentage of the fund is in the top 10 holdings? If the top 10 holdings are eating up 50%, 60%, 70% of the fund, you need to know that going in. It doesn't automatically make it a bad investment. But you deserve to know what you're actually buying. You wouldn't sign a lease without reading it. Don't buy an ETF without checking what's inside. Mistake number 2. Thinking diversified means safe. This one is sneaky because it's a half-truth. ETFs are safer than buying one single stock. That part is real. If one company in your ETF goes bankrupt, it barely moves the needle. Diversification genuinely protects you from that kind of individual company risk. But here's what diversification cannot protect you from, and what most people don't realize until it's too late. It cannot protect you from the entire market dropping at once. Think about 2008. The financial crisis. It didn't matter if you owned one stock or 1,000 stocks. The whole market dropped roughly 50%. Your diversified S&P 500 ETF got cut in half just like everything else. The pandemic crash. The market dropped 34% in 33 days. Broad ETFs, diversified ETFs, safe ETFs, they all fell off a cliff together. Now here's where this mistake really costs people money. Regular investors, good people, hardworking Americans who did everything right, panic when they see their account down 30%, 40%. They think something is broken. They sell, locking in the loss permanently. Then the market recovers, and they're not in it anymore. I want you to actually sit with this for a second. If you had $50,000 in a broad market ETF in January 2020, you watched it drop to around $33,000 by March. That's $17,000 vanishing in a month. Your heart is pounding. The news is terrifying. Every instinct says get out. The people who held. By August 2020, just 5 months later, they were back to even. By end of 2020 they were up. The people who sold in the panic. They locked in a $17,000 loss and missed the entire recovery. The mistake wasn't buying ETFs. The mistake was not understanding the real risk before they bought them, so when volatility hit, they had no plan. Here's the simple fix. Before you put money into any ETF, ask yourself one honest question. If this account dropped 40% tomorrow and stayed down for a year, what would I do? If your honest answer is, I'd probably sell, then you need to reconsider either how much you're investing or where you're investing it. Because putting money in the market without preparing for volatility is like driving a car without knowing the brakes exist. Knowing the risk doesn't make it go away. But it means you won't panic when it shows up. Mistake number 3, ignoring the fees that are silently eating your retirement. Okay. This is the one that makes me the most frustrated. Because this mistake is completely avoidable, and it costs Americans billions of dollars every single year. I want to show you the math, because numbers tell this story better than anything. Let's say you invest $10,000 today and leave it for 30 years. The market averages 8% annually. Pretty standard assumption. With a 0.3% expense ratio, which is what you'd pay with something like a Vanguard or Fidelity index fund, you end up with about $99,000. Now let's say you picked a different ETF. Looks similar. Same market. But it has a 1% expense ratio, which is not unusual for actively managed ETFs. Same $10,000. Same 30 years. Same market returns. You end up with about $74,000. You just paid $25,000 in fees. On a $10,000 investment. That's not a typo. That's the power of compounding working against you instead of for you. And here's the brutal part, you never write a check for those fees. You never see them leave your account. They just quietly reduce your returns every single year. Invisible. Painless in the moment. Devastating over time. Now let's talk about a second fee people completely forget, trading commissions. Some brokerage platforms charge you a small fee every time you buy or sell an ETF. If you're doing dollar cost averaging, putting in money every month, which is a great strategy, those small trading fees add up faster than you'd think. $5 per trade. You invest monthly. That's $60 a year in commissions. Over 30 years, with compounding, that's real money gone for absolutely nothing. The fix here is simple but requires 5 minutes of homework. When you're choosing an ETF, compare expense ratios first. For broad market index ETFs, there is no reason to pay more than 0.10%. Vanguard, Fidelity, and Schwab all offer excellent broad market ETFs at 0.3% to 0.6%. And choose a brokerage with commission-free ETF trading. Most major platforms, Fidelity, Schwab, TD Ameritrade, offer this now. There's no excuse to be paying per trade fees in 2024. One number to remember: every 1% in extra fees costs you roughly 20 to 25% of your final portfolio value over 30 years. Read that one more time. Then go check what you're paying right now. Mistake number 4, chasing last year's hot ETF, the performance trap. Raise your hand if you've ever done this. You're scrolling through investing content. You see an ETF that returned 45% last year. Your current ETF returned 12%. You think, why am I not in that one? So you move your money. And then that ETF has a terrible year. And your old ETF quietly does fine. This is called performance chasing. And it is one of the most expensive behavioral mistakes in investing. Here's why it keeps happening to smart people. Our brains are wired to see patterns. We look at a chart going up and up and up, and our instinct says, that trend will continue. It feels logical. It feels obvious. But markets don't work like that. The sectors and strategies that perform best in one year are often the ones that underperform the next, specifically because they got so popular that prices got pushed way above their actual value. Real example. In 2020, clean energy ETFs absolutely exploded. Some returned 200% in a single year. Investors piled in. Felt like a sure thing. 2021 and 2022. Many of those same clean energy ETFs dropped 50%, 60%, 70%. The people who bought in 2019 based on conviction. They still made money even after the crash. The people who bought in late 2020 chasing that 200% return. They got crushed. The single best question to ask before buying any ETF is not, how did it perform last year? It's, do I understand what this ETF actually holds, why it would grow over the long term, and am I willing to hold it through a bad year? If you can answer yes to all three, buy it with confidence. If you're buying it because a chart looked impressive, slow down. Past performance in investing is like driving using only your rearview mirror. It tells you where you've been. It tells you almost nothing about where you're going. Mistake number 5. Touching leveraged ETFs without a full understanding. This one is short, because the warning itself is simple. Leveraged ETFs are products designed to multiply the daily return of an index. A 2x leveraged S&P 500 ETF is supposed to go up twice as much as the S&P 500 on good days. Sounds amazing, right? Here's the catch that changes everything. The leverage resets every single day. Which means the math works very differently than people expect. Quick example. The index goes up 10% one day. Your 2x ETF goes up 20%. Great. Next day the index drops 10%. Your 2x ETF drops 20%. You'd think you're back to even. You're not. Because that 20% loss is calculated on a higher starting number than the original gain. The math compounds against you during volatile periods. This is called volatility decay. And it can eat your returns alive even when the underlying index is flat or slightly positive. Leveraged ETFs have their uses, for experienced traders making short-term bets. But for long-term investors, they are a trap disguised as an opportunity. If you don't fully understand daily compounding and volatility decay, stay away from leveraged ETFs entirely. Not because you're not smart enough, but because there are plenty of better ways to grow your money without this kind of unnecessary risk. The simple ETF framework that actually works. Here's the thing nobody tells you. Avoiding these mistakes doesn't require being a financial genius. It requires 4 simple habits. 1. Always look inside before you buy. Check the holdings. Check how concentrated the top positions are. Know what you actually own. 2. Set your risk expectation before you invest. Assume your ETF could drop 40% at some point. Decide in advance that you will not sell during that drop. Write it down if you have to. Having a plan before the panic is the only thing that keeps people from making permanent mistakes during temporary downturns. 3. Make the expense ratio your first filter. If two ETFs track the same index, pick the cheaper one. Every time. No exceptions. That decision alone could be worth tens of thousands of dollars to you over a lifetime. 4. Invest on a schedule, not on feelings. Pick an amount. Pick a date each month. Invest it regardless of what the market is doing. This strategy, called dollar cost averaging, removes emotion from the equation and historically outperforms trying to time the market. That's it. 4 habits. No advanced degree required. No Bloomberg terminal. No financial advisor charging you 1% a year to do what you can do yourself in 20 minutes a month. The investors who build real wealth aren't smarter than you. They're just more disciplined and less emotional. And now you have the knowledge to be both. Real quick before you go, I want you to do one thing right now. Pull up your brokerage account. Look at whatever ETFs you currently hold. Google the ticker plus, holdings, and expense ratio. Just look. That's it. You might be fine. But you might find something that surprises you, and now you'll know what to do about it. Drop a comment below and tell me, did any of these mistakes hit close to home? Have you ever chased a hot ETF or panicked and sold during a dip? No judgment, this stuff happens to almost everyone. If this video opened your eyes to something your money is doing behind the scenes, hit the like button and subscribe. We put out videos like this every single week because financial education shouldn't cost $500 an hour. See you in the next one. Stay smart with your money.